We back. It took a little bit.
I just almost forgot to play the logo. Did you notice that? I forgot we had a logo. Yo, JJ!
JJ, what's up? Yeah, we're back. We had to definitely blow the dust off that ass. There we go. Volume's good.
We good on the? We're shooting onto the internet.
Yep, we are all over the inner tubes. So it's good to be back, man. It's just weird that it's only been like off for a week, but then we went earlier the week before, so it's like feels like a month.
It's been over 10. It's been like 15 days. It's been over 2 weeks.
Yeah, and
audio's good. JJ says I trust his judgment.
Oh yes, definitely. So yeah, feels good to be back though. We were all over the place. There was a lot of. Es loco está superb. Yeah, that's JJ's. JJ's also, and just so you know, he's our official translator. So you get that. And we are all about Halloween. This is the best season for our content. We love this content. We got a little Halloween flavor going on. We got some música de spooky. And we got some special guests that are here in studio that we'll show you, and that are actually the star of a hit show on USA.
You brought
Peacock.
celebrities with you today.
Yeah, we do have. This is
to the show.
Yeah, we have celebrities in studio, which is great. It's good for production value. I think the algorithm likes celebrities. That's what I heard. Algorithms like celebrities. They especially like them when they slap each other. But even if they're just there, they dig it. They dig it. So we will bring them in. So we got everything, all the tubes going. We got some good stuff we're going to be talking about today. A lot has happened in that 15 days.
Yeah, it's been a while. A lot of wrestling updates.
Fantastic wrestling updates. Big wrestling updates. One of the biggest of all time. We'll talk about that. But also of all time, we're going to go take a step back because a hot new show on Vice, Tales from the Territory, which I'm sure for you, dude, it had to blow your mind. Like, I heard a lot of the stories.
Yeah. So it's really good. And we talked about this previously, how Dark Side of the Ring was going to have to go less dark. And I think they did a version of it now.
They did.
They swerved it a little.
Although, we'll get into it. I mean, is it really that less? Well, here it was. All the people that were talking were smiling this time. Everybody was in on the joke. There they are. What's up, YouTubes? How you doing?
Yeah, the camera cuts on at the end of the song.
That's right. So you can see one of our in studio guests is behind. Welcome, star of the hit TV show on USA, Chucky. Please welcome Chucky. There he is, right there.
That was the wrong button. Welcome.
Do you follow Chucky on Twitter?
I don't.
Chucky on Twitter is fantastic.
Is it actually Brad Dourif running the account?
I read all the tweets in his voice, and the profanity and the threats of violence are aplentiful.
What kind of tweets does Chucky tweet?
He says, "What celebrity do you want me to at?" And then threats of violence are there. And he likes to call people a-holes. Like, no matter, even his fans he calls a-holes, and they just eat it up. He's a heel. I don't know if you know this or not.
Could he be barred from Twitter for infringing on the
That's a good question.
The violations?
Are threats of violence?
You can't threaten people on Twitter and stay on.
No, well, Chucky does. He's very stabby. I keep trying to sell you on how good this show is.
But you're a big mark for Chucky, obviously. Already.
Man, well, before. And here's the thing.
Did you see? You know, there was a documentary about Chucky at Fantastic Fest. Did I tell you about this?
No.
Yeah, it's called Living with Chucky or something like that.
No, was it a shoot?
I could not get a seat. Yeah, it's a shoot documentary.
Really?
So it should be coming out. Let's look it up, shall we?
Mm-hmm. Look it up, because I'm only in episode 1. Only 2 episodes dropped. One of the best episodes, if you do jump back, is last year's Chucky episode when it was the Chucky Halloween episode. I can't recommend this show enough. And you know what this show reminds me of? This show does to Chucky what Cobra Kai did for Karate Kid. I said it and I'm not taking it back. That's right. I know everybody loves Cobra Kai. We're marks for Cobra Kai. We loved Cobra Kai when it was on YouTube Red. But I'm telling you right here and now, Chucky does for Child's Play what Cobra Kai does for Karate Kid. I'm saying it.
So is Chucky like an underdog in this one?
Chucky's taken over the world.
He's like an underdog that his life didn't go exactly as he planned, and he's trying to make a comeback.
Yeah, his plans went awry, and he's fixing his plans. And they got Jennifer Tilly back. They got growed up Andy. They honor all that. You know, he's like, listen, I understand this generation. I have a kid that's gender fluid, okay? And like they're honoring Seed of Chucky. Who wants to honor Seed of Chucky? Chucky wants to honor Seed of Chucky.
And Jennifer Tilly's in it?
Jennifer Tilly is in it, as well as another person that is live in studio with us. Please welcome Tiffany. Tiffany is in the house. So she will be monitoring the close-up cam today. And as you can see here, let me see. Yeah, you see right there on her, she still loves the Chuck. But they have a love-hate relationship in this, and awesome. And I will just tell you that Jennifer Tilly may be a full-on heel and may be holding someone else, spoiler alert, somebody else from the past movie. She may have sawed off their arms and legs and holding them hostage.
Well, I don't know about that, but I think that Jennifer Tilly is a national treasure, and I think if she's in the show, we should watch it.
Yes.
Seriously, she's a national treasure.
Yes. Yeah, so nice. Jennifer Tilly and Chucky are twin flames. Yeah, they're fine. It's great. It really is. I hope one day for you to watch it and you'll be like, what have I been waiting for? Why didn't I listen to you? That's the moment I'm waiting for. I
would watch every single show you recommend if the days were
if it was
46
possible.
hours long.
Yeah, no, I get it. But when you do, you're going to look at and Anthony's right. Jennifer Tilly looks good to this day. And I love that. Think about this as like Jennifer Tilly when she's coming off Bound, right?
Have you seen Bound recently? It played. It was playing on Star. I only watch cable now. I watch whatever Starz says I should watch.
Yes, I know you've been talking about like how you're just really.
It is the best thing to just have all the cable channels and not have to decide what to watch. No, but Starz is playing all the Kevin Smith movies tonight. I'll watch that.
Yeah, you know what's funny is like all the apps together now they're calling cable 2.0. Right, because you're getting your a la carte, you're paying this, you're paying that. You still have to do it. You basically want what now in 2022 they would call a content curator.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to have to pick what I can watch. That's ridiculous. I just want to turn on the TV and stuff to be on.
Yeah.
And now Netflix tried to do like a random. It's like, oh, just surprise me and play something random. Have you seen they have that button?
Oh no, that's their cable.
But it sucks. Netflix is like like sometimes you have a friend and you think you're close, but then you realize they don't understand you at all. And it plays some weird shit. It's like I have no interest in this at all.
Yeah.
Just play Escape from New York again.
That sounds like wasn't that an old? No, that was TiVo. That TiVo was just the one that was tinkering with.
TiVo's just recordings.
Yeah, but they were tinkering with. They were trying to understand you. Like, hey, you may want to record this show. TiVo dropped the ball. TiVo was a hit in Tropic Thunder. TiVo should have been Netflix. No, everyone talks about the rise and fall of Blockbuster.
Wait, be quiet for a second. Can you hear the band?
Oh yeah. So they're playing a live score for us. Those Incredibles house show live with
There's a marching band rehearsing nearby. I think that's coming through. I hear that on my headphones.
You know what I think of anytime I hear of a band marching through? Oh boy, is this great! Animal House, ding!
JJ's right. TiVo should have been massive.
TiVo should have been massive,
and it is a great idea. It's like a VCR, but it's digital.
Yeah. They just really dropped the ball. They started letting you have apps on there, and they should have partnered up with Netflix. That's what they should have done. So I don't know, but everyone forgets about it. But I used to love to reboot my TiVo, and it would take 10 minutes, but they'd play like all these TiVo shorts anytime they were rebooting. And that meant it used to feel
TiVo shorts. I never remember that.
Yeah, it was just basically TiVo. Their little TiVo guy that would kind of jump in and he would just be like walking down the street. It would look like something like Schoolhouse Rock, but for content. I
never missed TiVo. No lie. I was like recording stuff on tapes till like 2016. And that was the way you would watch shows you missed. Yeah.
And I had TiVo. It took a long time for me to finally give up on TiVo. But at that point you had to give up on cable too. So but dude, yeah, we took a walk down memory lane, but let's talk about some of the stuff that we've done in these 15 days. I happened to have some very poor timing and leave town when our very dear, close, personal, longtime friend in our hearts, Joe Bob Briggs, was in Austin live.
I can't believe you missed that, dude.
I am so bummed that I missed that live. Right here at one of our favorite cinemas, the AFS Cinema. Yep. He was here live, and he did a double feature.
Yeah, I mean, he basically did his gimmick. He did The Last Drive-In, but live. you know. So right now he's doing a tour with he's got these brain movies. That's the theme. Is the brain. So it was yeah, dude. It was awesome. You want me to describe it to you?
Yeah, fill me in because it looked like it was a sold out house.
It was 100% sold out show.
They have a nice little bar area.
They got a good bar. Drinks are only $14, so
but it goes to a good cause.
Basically free. Yeah, you're supporting independent.
You're supporting independent cinema.
Film, so it's good. So anyway, yeah, Joe Bob did it. I mean, because the tickets got announced not even that long ago.
It was within a week.
I feel like you would have adjusted your flight.
100%, because I was literally on the plane as it was happening. Because I was shout out to JetBlue for the free Wi-Fi. But anyway, I was getting your text of your live reports while I was sitting on the plane.
So I went to the thing. I had 2 seats. The guy scanned both tickets, and it was just like, you have 2 seats. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, but
gotta get a buffer seat.
Gotta get a buffer seat. Yeah, so I had a buffer seat, which was great. Because I was just getting over cold from doing night shoots. I got sick. But anyway, walked in, packed, full house. And people were in line to go in the theater. You know, at AFS, everybody kind of mills around in that bar area.
Yep.
No, people were lined up at the theater door. They wanted those front seats to get in, you know? So,
because there's no reserve seats.
There's no reserve seating.
No reserve seats there.
And I bet you would have been in line had we got there.
100% would have been.
So anyway, we it opened up, got in, got seats, got a nice $14 Paloma and some popcorn, settled in for the show. Like I said, I was getting over a cold, so I didn't know that I would make it through the whole show because I was just like, I was.
Yeah, you sounded banged up.
Yeah, I was pretty hopped up on Advil, cold and sinus, and you know. But anyway, he came out and he did his intro, super energetic, just great. Like it's like the last drive-in intro, but he was more into it. Maybe he had a couple extra drinks. He was cursing in this one, and the first movie was good.
That was.
I sent you the intro. You can, if you go to our YouTube Shorts page, or whatever.
We put the drive-in. Yeah, check it out. We put our drive-in totals there, which is one of the best parts. Because I could never tell if he literally just does that off the cuff or because
I know he definitely writes it. Because this show, he was touring with this whole show. This wasn't just like in Austin, I'm going to do a random double feature. This is his show, and he's got the shit written. He's got his in-between jokes written. You know what I mean? It's a whole program.
And so the first one was The Brain, which I knew they did in Dallas at the studio with what's his name, where the assassination guy, JFK assassin, hit out. The Texas Theater.
Yeah, the Texas Theater, yeah.
Texas Theater. But they did The Brain and then a different one, where this one was The Brain and Don't Look Back. So you saw the Brain. So
apparently he was going to play Brain Damage.
Brain Damage was the other one.
He was going to play Brain Damage, but you know, Lars from the AFS told him this, and Joe Bob called this out. He's like, we were going to do Brain Damage as the second movie, but Lars from AFS says, Brain Damage. Everybody here has seen Brain Damage 1,000 times. It's like that's too pedestrian for Austin.
Wow.
So he picked a different movie, and it was like a Spanish brain movie.
Lars wields the
OG film scene in Austin.
Yeah, he wields the power.
If there's like a film scene icon, he's it.
He's it, right? Because what's the name of the book? He's in that book.
I don't know, but we should get it and read it.
Yeah, we should just do a Andy Kaufman live reading and just read the whole thing. That's awesome, and that just goes to show the influence. And that's that Alamo Drafthouse villain because that's where Lars started, right?
Yeah, definitely. He kind of is the originator of everything that still exists in Alamo. You know, with that curator style where you play the weird videos before the movie and the trailers, and
it changed everything.
Yeah, and now if you go to AFS, you can see that he's still the author of that, but now he takes it to AFS.
Yeah, and he's just a regular dude, and then he just hops in his car, parked next to him one time, and he's like, "Hey," and then just drives away.
He used to look nuttier. You see him now; he's got like short hair, and he's got a regular collared shirt or whatever. He used to look nuts. He had insane, longer hair than me. Just wilding out. He had like a crazy Datsun kind of station wagon that he would drive around town. You'd see him at events. He used to look insane, but now he looks insane. Now he's like older, middle aged,
insane in the memory. Yeah, Anthony said Brain Damage looks sick. So it's pretty impressive that Joe Bob. Well, he's his own writer, and he's someone that could flip on a dime for him to say, okay, let's do another one. He's like, okay, I can totally write a whole gimmick for this.
Yeah.
And he did. So it's exciting, man.
You missed a lot. I'm just going to say you missed a great thing.
It's going to make next Friday is going to be the last drive-in Halloween
I'm going to miss
special.
that because I'll be on the plane. But
That's right. Yeah, we're going to
unless I can watch it on the plane. Maybe I can.
You might be able, well, fly JetBlue, and you certainly can because their Wi-Fi is free.
Yeah.
So you can get Shudder in there. So, but yeah, I wanted to do a backyard drive-in again.
Oh, you should definitely do that with that new setup you got.
Yeah, we're going to definitely get a nice screen and new projector. But speaking of Alamo, while I was gone, I did a tri-state area tour, hit like 3 of the 5 boroughs. I was in Connecticut, I was in Jersey, went to the JETS Jets game, watched them finally win, beat the Dolphins. But that was the main gist of the trip. But obviously, my son's going to be going to Seton Hall, sport broadcasting, not too far through the Holland Tunnel. I was like, you know what? I really want to check out an Alamo Drafthouse in New York to see if Tim League and the Alamo Drafthouse think tank was able to export a vibe. Can you export a vibe? That was the question. Now, before I really just thought there was 3 Alamo Drafthouse. Well, I thought there was only 2. I knew of the one in Yonkers, and then I knew of the one in the Dose Jet Setters. Yeah, we were all over.
Jet setting this month for sure.
Jet setting. I knew of the one in Yonkers, and then I knew of the one in Brooklyn. So I was like, okay, they say we highly suggest that you take public transportation to get there, but I had to go through there because I needed to get to JFK. If you ever driven in any of the boroughs, it's quite the treat. Someone's like, why is everybody honking? I was like, that's just their way of saying F you without having to use the words.
That means I'm driving right now.
I'm driving over here.
That's my driving indicator.
Yeah, that's just to let them know. And he's like, wow, there's a sign there that says if you honk in this area, you can get fined $500. So they do this gimmick where it's just like kind of a honk. And so instead of yelling F you, it's kind of like a middle finger is faster. So it's like, beep.
You'll never identify the honker if I do it.
Yeah, if you just do it quicker than a hiccup. But anyway, so I did have to brave that traffic going through the Holland Tunnel to get to No Sleep Till Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn. And we had to pay $35 to park. They had the little elevator gimmick for the car. He's like, what are they doing with this car? Like, literally just goes in there and looks like you're putting it on a shelf. He's like, and how do you get to it? I was like, I don't ask any questions. The guy who just kind of gave us a dirty look, we give him the keys, we give him the money, and we get our car back. So we walked over to Alamo Drafthouse, and it was on the 4th floor. So, of course, you had to go through,
Is this it right here?
No, that might be the New York one. Oh, no, that's it.
That's it?
That's it, yeah, the House of Wax. So that's their gimmick for their hotel. You know how each bar, it's not hotel, each bar has their own gimmick. Mm-hmm. Like we have the circus gimmick here.
Yeah.
We have the Planet of the Apes gimmick. They went with this one, they went to the House of Wax gimmick. So if you check out our socials and our YouTube, you can see the bar was closed, but I did literally stick my hand behind the red curtain and start snapping some pictures. But it's multiple floors, similar to here in Mueller.
Yeah. But
I am here to report that you 100% can export a vibe. Because they did it. Thank you. Yeah, you can do it. Literally, you know how impossible it is to get queso up north? They will give you Cheese Whiz and the finger when you ask for queso. So, that's kind of like our go-to. Is like, well, we got to get chips and queso. So that was the first test. Success. Complete parody.
So they've duplicated the menu.
They duplicated the menu.
And it tastes the same?
Yep. So they had the Mexican vanilla shake, the hot pretzel, the chips and queso. They hit the mark on all of it. But get this. This was the big test. Don't at me any other states, but Brooklyn, New York has the best pizza in the country. Now, I don't know. It could be. I've only had pizza in Italy, and it was kind of like the Neapolitan style. But if you're talking about that pizza, if you're talking about Jersey versus Long Island versus Connecticut,
I want to know about those pizza differences.
Brooklyn. Well, yeah. I mean, it's bigger, right?
Wait, this is Brooklyn pizza?
Brooklyn pizza. and it's sturdier yet foldable.
Is it a pan pizza?
Yeah, it's a pan pizza. It's thin.
Is it grandma style?
What's grandma style?
There's one called Grandma's where they kind of make it in a sheet pan.
I guess.
Or is it circular or is it rectangular?
Circular. Yeah, no, they have rectangular, but that's Sicilian style.
Yeah.
So you got to ask Sicilian style.
That's what Grandma's is closer to Sicilian.
Yeah.
Grandma was Sicilian.
Yeah, and Sicilian tastes a little bit like Detroit. So it's a little bit of square. It's got the burnt edges that are kind of nice. And then,
Dude, I learned the secret to Detroit pizza the other day. I got to tell you about it.
Oh.
I'll tell you off camera.
All right. It's a secret. You don't want Detroit to send us a cease and desist. But anyway, so the biggest test was like we're in the middle. We're literally in downtown Brooklyn. What pizza are they going to serve? Are they going to serve a Brooklyn pie? Or are they going to serve what you're used to getting at Alamo Drafthouse, which is what I would consider pub pizza, right? Pub pizza, you would call it. It's a little bit like smaller. You're not going to fold it. You're going to, like, I actually dip the pizza in the queso. That's what I call extra cheese.
That is a super pizza hack.
So yeah, you can dip it. And the thing about Alamo is you don't need to fold it, so you just do the dip.
Yeah.
So the moment of truth, here, I'm going to pull up a picture. I still have the picture. And I'm going to tell you the verdict. The verdict is that Tim League said, you know what? They're coming to Alamo Drafthouse. We're going to give them an Alamo Drafthouse pizza, not a Brooklyn Pie pizza. So, Tiffany, if you can hold my phone here and see if we can get that on the close-up cam gimmick.
Yeah.
That is the pizza that we got here. And that looks like the old familiar at Alamo Drafthouse, which is good pizza.
Pizza and a milkshake. Can't beat it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, you got to get that Mexican vanilla straight shake. And if you notice, those are not chopsticks in there. Those are 2 straws. Because said, sorry, it's pretty early. And people don't normally get shakes, so we're out of shake straws. We'll just give you 2 straws and hope for the best. So
that's the best we can do, yeah.
Yeah, so it was delicious. So, and the pre-show was the exact, if you're wondering, there was no movies long enough for us to make the time-wise to make a JFK, so we had to watch a second movie, a movie that we've seen before, so we went with Barbarian. I was like, let's go just watch Barbarian again. And I loved it the second time just as much as I loved it the first time.
Did you love it more or less?
Probably a little more. Because, so I had less suspense because the swerve was coming up, and you knew the swerve was coming up, so I didn't feel that. I was waiting for okay, when's the part 2? Because this is, would you call it a little bit of an anthology, Barbarian?
No, well, maybe.
A connective anthology, because you had 3 separate ones that kept going back.
Is Pulp Fiction an anthology?
Kinda, ish. I put the ish in there.
So I would say ish, yeah.
Yeah. So I knew when those spots were coming. And
you know what was hilarious? I sent it to you, right? The trailer to Barbarian, the alternate trailer where it's all about Justin Long.
Oh yeah, you did. And that was again, if you were watching the trailer, wait, is this a different movie? It's no, same exact movie. We need to plug that. That was really good. That
movie has gotten a lot. It's gotten over.
It's gotten over.
And busted into the main. I think it's going to continue to grow with that movie.
I think so. I mean, I remember the homeless guy said she's not even the worst thing in there, and you could assume it was the guy from the '80s that was rounding up the women, or it could be there's something else. Those were pretty big tunnels.
Well, you told me the title sums it all up. The title makes it completely possible.
Yeah.
It's the street, right?
It's the street.
So the street, lots of shit could have been going on in the street.
Yeah.
I gotta stop cursing. Sorry. Sorry, algorithm. I didn't mean it. I meant to say crap. Algorithm.
Yeah, so an anthology within a film that has connective tissue and it all makes sense. And I love the jumps, and it worked again so well when it just when the end of the anthology and it ties back to what you already saw and you realize, oh, okay, that's that. And you start putting the connective tissue and you start looking like, the guy Always Sunny meme with all the thread behind you. Really good. So yeah, back to the Alamo though. That was, the pre-show was on point. We had, JJ, you'll appreciate this. We had a short that we put on there when you have the people sitting in a horror movie by themselves, all looking at each other and having that awkward smile. So there was 5 of us in there, and we were all strategically separated, but we were all kind of laughing at the right spots and this crew is going to be okay that we're laughing that, Bill Sarsgaard just got his head bashed on the rock, and you're like, oh, and we're all kind of laughing, but then looking out. Even the guy like held the door, and he kind of gave me the look when he walked out, and he was like, and then sheesh, and he kept pointing at me and going, and then he headed for the bathroom.
This was the end of Barbarian. That was the walkout?
Yeah, that was the walkout. And I was like,
gosh.
this is great. This reminds me of Leslie Nielsen and Priscilla Presley walking out at the end of Naked Gun, and you look up and they were watching Platoon.
Well, it makes more sense because it was a fun ride.
It was a fun ride. It was a fun ride. And
sidebar, I was in Jaws, just speaking of.
Yes.
When I went to see Jaws 3D not that long ago, man, folks were aggressive with their commentary and their lack of commentary. There was when Quint says, here's to swimming with bow-legged women. Some folks in the back laughed really hard at that joke. They popped hard for that joke. And they were laughing like maybe it was the first time seeing Jaws, like you'd never even heard of it or considered swimming with bow-legged women. But like they laughed really hard. And then people in the front row turned around and were like, shh. I was like, they're just laughing at the line. You can't shush them.
Yeah, you can't shush them. This is literally when you do the lighten up, Francis.
Yeah, because they were some shushers. There was a group of shushers in the front of Jaws 3D because Alamo drops that warning. It's like this is now a no talking zone. Whatever, Yep. It's real aggressive and it scares you. It's like you think you're going to get killed, but like someone laughed right after that and just was like shh. Immediately. It's like they just played the warning. The movie hasn't even started.
Yeah, we have a video that we talk about that. They do need to lighten up on that. But again, speaking of that Alamo Drafthouse parody, they played that warning as well. So
yeah.
Tim Lee did it. He absolutely did it. Downtown Brooklyn, you can get a picture of King Kong with King Kong because obviously King Kong. Although I would have went. Here's the thing, and so you appreciate these movies. What is your opinion? So they got four Yonkers, which Yonkers is kind of Westchester. It doesn't count. But if you're talking about like in the boroughs, that's considered NYC.
Yeah.
So you got Staten Island, you got Manhattan, and you got Brooklyn. So Brooklyn went with the King Kong. I don't know what Staten Island went with theme, but Manhattan proper went with Ghostbusters theme. Mm. And they said the guy was like, well, you know what? This is like the oldest one. This is probably... You would love the Staten Island one, and they really went out with the Ghostbusters one. When you think of Manhattan, when you think of New York, are you associating King Kong more with New York, or are you associating Ghostbusters with New York?
Oh man, I mean, honestly, probably Ghostbusters because I watched Ghostbusters a lot more than King Kong. And when I did watch King Kong, it was always the Jeff Bridges version.
Oh.
Not the original black and white version.
Well, the Jeff Bridges one was a little bit more iconic in a sense where he climbed the Twin Towers, not the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
Where the OG, they climbed the Empire State Building.
And honestly, more than that version, I watched the sequel more than that, was just King Kong Lives.
Oh, yes, that's right. No, that was Kong Skull Island was the prequel that just came out. You're talking about the King Kong Lives.
The sequel to the Jeff Bridges version.
To this Jeff Bridges one, yeah.
Yeah, where he fell and it just cuts to like 5 years later. Oh, he's still alive.
Yeah, he's still
That's it. No explanation further needed. But no, I think Ghostbusters because...
Yeah, JJ agrees. Ghostbusters for sure.
Yeah, I think you never really know it's New York till the very end of King Kong. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's true. It could have been anything.
But like Ghostbusters, very much New York.
When we were driving through...
Dude, that one part there's one part in Ghostbusters that's badass that makes the whole movie. But like, aside from that, Ghostbusters is a huge accident that like shouldn't even be as good as it is. That one part of Ghostbusters... where after they're in court and they decide, okay, we got to let the Ghostbusters do their thing. And it just has that music that is nowhere else in the movie. It's like, dun, dun. And like, it's like just them pulling up to the front of the building.
Yeah.
And they have the real crowds out there and stuff.
Yeah.
Which was all like real. That wasn't like extras.
Oh, no. Yeah. I think they did something similar. I think Elf kind of did that
yeah.
too. Like, well, it's New York. We're not going to be able to get these people stopped. Let's just throw some music on
yeah.
and throw it on there. Bill Murray's going to riff. But you're right. I mean, you don't really know it's New York until obviously the second one you do, right? Because they got the Statue of Liberty and it's that kind of singing.
They should have not made Ghostbusters 2. That's my opinion. I appreciate it for what it is, but they should have just left Ghostbusters alone.
Yeah, that probably could have been left in the Back to the Future category as far. Although they made Back to Future 2 and 3, so I guess that's not true. But that never remake. That's probably one of the ones that should just leave it alone. Anthony said Kong versus Godzilla wasn't bad. I totally agree. That was a victim of the pandy. I think that I was looking forward to seeing that in theaters, and it was
pretty good, I thought.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, and there's another one coming. Great soundtrack, and New Yorkers are in the movie as New Yorkers. Yeah, and that's great, and that works because walking down the street in New York, no one cares. Like, if you got a camera, they're not going to be like, hey, what are you doing? What are you filming over here? Yeah. They don't make eye contact. Don't get that camera. They barely will look at you. So they will actually direct better than you would extras who would probably like trying to peek
That's why that
camera.
Ghostbusters is so good, because those weren't extras. Those are people who just came to watch them film. Yeah. And they saw Bill Murray come out and they're like, yeah, Bill Murray. So that's all real.
Yeah, exactly. JJ saw Mortal Kombat instead of Kong and regrets it to this day. I think I did one of the HBO Maxes for Mortal Kombat, but not for Godzilla versus Kong. We did a theater rent out. That was actually... We rented out a theater. It was one of the ones that they were selling it super cheap. So let's just get the whole theater.
Yeah, you could rent out a theater for like $35 there for a while.
It was like, what a slam dunk though. But dude, yeah, it was quite the action. I was driving through the boroughs, and it connects. Like, we basically went Manhattan into Brooklyn, kind of into Queens, and Jack was like, wow, this looks exactly like Gotham. She was like, how many tire and car shops could you have in one area?
Yeah.
A lot. The answer is a lot.
You need your car.
Yeah, you need your
shops
car
to fix it.
So I know we're going to get Wrestling Wayne in here soon, but there's something I got to talk about. R.I.P. to Angela Lansbury. Murder, She Wrote. Murder, She Wrote. Legend. But did you see?
My grandparents love that show.
Oh, man. But here's the thing, bro. Murder, She Wrote in real life. Listen to this, that I pulled this up. Blew my mind. Her kids were almost seduced by Charles Manson.
Her kids were. I thought she said she was.
No, her kids.
Her kids were.
It's your kids, Marty. We got to do something about your kids.
Her kids were almost seduced by Marilyn Manson?
Charles Manson.
Charles Manson.
Yeah, they were almost seduced by Charles Manson, and she had to flee the country and hide her kids out in Ireland to get them cleaned up and not brainwashed by Charles Manson. So in an alternate universe, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Murder, She Wrote lady's kids possibly could have murdered someone in real life.
And she probably would have solved that murder. Yeah. She's like, it was my kids.
Yeah, it's like, dude, how crazy is that? Like, this is one of those moments all right, this is some Matrix stuff right here. What are the odds of that? She risked her career to leave the country to save her kids, and it worked. Thank goodness. But how is that even possible?
I don't know. That's wild. I thought you said that it was her that almost did it. This adds a whole other level. Yeah,
so it's you definitely got to check it out. It's on Twitter. Let me pull up the one that just like I just saw it. It's like, I was like, why is she trending? And then like, why is she trending with Marilyn? I keep saying it, with Charles Manson. Yeah, she fled L.A. so her family could escape Charles Manson's cult. Her daughter was one of the many youngsters who knew him, and she was fascinated. He was an extraordinary character, charismatic in many ways, no question about it. So it was, her son and daughter. They were queuing him up to be in the cult. Just like, man, what are the odds of that? I guess it wasn't.
That's pretty low, probably.
Yeah, I guess it is L.A. And he was preying on a lot of people that were coming there. But she risked her career. She wasn't... We know her from Murder, She Wrote, but she was in a lot of stuff before that.
Yeah.
And she...
I don't even know anything about her before Murder, She Wrote. What else was she in? She was in the... wasn't she in the... What was Beauty and the Beast? Is she in Beauty and the Beast?
Yeah, she was one of the. She was like the one of the gimmicks, one of the silverware.
She was the teapot.
Yeah, she was the teapot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she was also the evil Mrs. Lovett in the stage version of Sweeney Todd. Let's give her a proper. Let's give her a proper.
You read her obit.
Yeah.
Read her highlights. That'd be a good idea.
Let's read her highlights.
Angela Lansbury.
Lansbury.
Career highlights.
Yep. October 16th, 1925 to October 11th, 2022. She was Irish born. Oh, that's why she went back to Ireland. Okay, she was Irish born. Let's see some of her filmography. So yeah, she has a lot of Murder, She Wrote, Law and Order. Let's see some of her films. Yeah, she goes back to 1940, 1950s.
Oh wow, she was active for a while.
Yeah, she was doing a lot, and she was fire too. Look at that. I don't remember in what a slam dunk casting to get Angela Lansbury in Law and Order.
Yeah,
that's like Marvel MCU stuff to connect those universes,
right?
So having her in there, okay. This I was gonna read her stuff, but it's not clear. I probably should have gone to IMDb.
These are her roles.
Yeah, Beauty and the Beast.
Yep.
Career beginnings. Broadway.
What's up, Arun? Arun's on.
Oh, Arun, what's up? Angela, yeah, she was hot. Yeah, if you look at some of her pictures from back in the day, it's just like, wow. There's one, she's like, her eyes, she almost looks like a filter on TikTok before there were filters.
Yeah.
What did they use?
The Angela Lansbury filter.
Yeah, it's like, I want that filter. You know, where she actually, there's something about her eyes that, you know how they have those gimmicks where you kind of make your eyes really pop and they just really come out?
Yeah.
She has that going on. So anyway, yeah, for her to escape that and risk that, but it just blew my mind. She appeared as Nellie Lovin and Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber, Fleet Street. She did a lot of stuff on Broadway. And she was actually also big in the West End. But Murder, She Wrote, dude, 1984 to 2003. That's a run.
What? That's a long run.
Yeah.
How many episodes is that?
That's a hell of a run. She did some stuff also in Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories, which was good. Oh, how's this for iconic picture? Original Broadway cast beat Arthur and Angela Lansbury. That's like you're talking.
What show is that?
Oh, that was a Broadway show. Ma'am? Ma'am? She was on the Dick Cavett show in 1971. She had a hell of a run. But it just blows my mind that she's a lot of, yes, Sweeney Todd forever, for sure. Yes, we need that Law and Order multiverse, but to have Angela Lansbury in there, to just really think about how she could have had like a Murder, She Wrote in real life. That connection just blew my mind. That felt very Matrixy. I don't know if you feel that Matrix vibe.
No, definitely. In an alternate universe, she's part of a crime instead of turning out to be someone who solved crimes for years.
Yeah. Oh, man. Blew my mind. So, but RIP, because that's the closest you can get to keeping a piece of news positive in a world where it's tough to keep news positive. We had this woman came out recently and was very concerned that Hocus Pocus 2, which I'm still trying to figure out, that's a different generation. That is their go-to Halloween film. We grew up on like Halloween slashers. Everyone goes, there's another generation goes Hocus Pocus 2. She's concerned that there are actual witch spells that are being putting on the viewers via Hocus Pocus 2.
Is that a shoot?
That's our shoot. That is a legit shoot.
So people are upset about Hocus Pocus 2?
Yeah.
I thought they'd be a lot happier. I can't believe that it even exists. They made the first one like 40 years ago.
Yeah, and Mike, if you're on here, please chime in on this. Mike basically has this theory that works out really well, that it was Hocus Pocus was like a lot of the leftover gimmicks for Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Like they're like, oh, we got all this leftover stuff. And JJ, you nailed it. This is what happens when we stop funding schools. But yeah, she was crying. She's on Twitter. Look it up. I'm not going to pull it up. I don't want to give her...
She says Hocus Pocus is full of spells?
Yes, full of spells. We don't know what they could be doing to our children. They could be doing spells. And it just blows my mind that people are allowing such evil to be thrown through the airwaves into your children's ears. And then she started crying.
Yeah.
The only spell that I'm trying to figure out is like, how did Hocus Pocus get so over? I went and saw it, and I'm like, that was fine.
Well, like I said, we saw it at a work event one time, remember?
Yeah, because
they screened it.
Because, we tried to play Friday the 13th.
They're like, no, that's too scary. We're going to play Hocus Pocus instead. And people can bring their kids. And I was like, you can bring your kid to Friday the 13th. Just explain to him what's going on.
Yeah. Talk about like a mother protecting their baby. That's what Friday the 13th is.
Exactly.
They could have saved him, but they chose not to.
It's a family movie.
Kill her, mommy. Kill her. But I just don't understand. And I haven't watched the second one, but I was just like, okay, I see it. I watched it, and I'm like, it's something that it's very easy to put on in the back. Like if you have something going.
You watched it?
The first one, not the second one.
Oh.
But I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I got to see what's going on here. So they did a revival at Cinemark. I don't know. It was a little bit pre-pandy. Yeah. I was like, I had a free ticket. I was like, I'm going to go see it in the theater to see if there's something different. And it was fine. I'm not saying it's bad. Don't at me if you love Hocus Pocus. But I still don't know why it got as over as it did. And now to enough where the sequel is out and apparently putting spell. So I think a spell has been put on people, but I really don't know what that spell is.
Is Hocus Pocus the one where they suck the souls out of people?
Yeah, they're witches. They're going to eat kids. That's what witches do.
But they're like literally inhaling souls from people.
Yeah, similar to Dr. Sleep, but not as here. But it was funny. Well, Wes Craven said it. Horror movies don't create fear; they release fear. I don't think that Bette Midler she's getting emotion out of you with tears, not with nothing. There's nothing evil behind that.
I think people like it because it's funny.
Yeah, and I think JJ put it. Bette Midler is just.
There's that one part where she punches like Jessica Parker in the stomach, and it sounds like a drum. That's hilarious.
They were the three stooges of '90s witch movies. You have Kathy Najimy, right? Bette Midler and Sarah Jessica Parker.
That's Peggy Hill.
That is Peggy. Hank has a narrow urethra. She's not gonna. Oh, Arn, yeah, I 'tis the season. I had to get this Camp Crystal Lake hat out. Yeah, but anyway, I do not think. But here it is. We can get. I'd love to talk to this lady about how we're living in a simulation, and I will duel her live. If you're watching this, let's duel live on the air. My simulation theory versus your Hocus Pocus theory. Challenge thrown out.
So what are the spells that the Hocus Pocus is throwing out?
Well, she thinks it's going to be
if you watch Hocus Pocus, you'll vote for Biden.
Yeah, I think that's or you're going to want to eat kids. I don't know. Or look, we talk about the spells that a lot of corporations put out there, which is basically the remember berries, right? This is a known property to the point where it's just like let's put a sequel out there and see what happens. But the spell is please subscribe $7.99 a month. Don't eat the customers, but please stay customers.
Yeah.
I think
just add us to your credit card, then forget about us.
Yeah, set it.
Every once in a while, we're gonna release something you're gonna want to see.
Set it and forget it. So I don't know, Disney. There's a lot of people that think Disney's evil, right?
Yeah.
I think corporations are kind of like weird entities that you would consider soulless because there's a lot of decisions that are made that doesn't have a lot of humanity behind it.
Yeah.
Sure, I can debate. We can debate that, and that's any industry, not just the film industry. But if it's something that's kind of like bringing joy, is it going to really be that bad? Oh, JJ, you got big news. Renee Young to WWE makes her first appearance on AEW TV.
Nice.
Yeah, it just drops out. That's
love the AEW spoilers. Keep them coming.
Yeah, that's a long time coming. So congrats to Renee. It's good to. She was the best. She was over with Mean Gene Okerlund, so I feel like that was the anointing of Renee Young right there.
On where was she over with Mean Gene?
Mean Gene, she did a lot of. She did some network exclusive stuff with Mean Gene.
Oh, right.
So if you are anointed, if you're a sports broadcaster in sports entertainment pro wrestling, and Mean Gene anoint you, you're over. And she got the rub from Mean Gene Okerlund. So I'm glad to see her getting work in there. Because we'll talk about this after our first fake break, because we have to talk about what's going on in the world of AEW and WWE, because we followed the buzzards, we followed the White Rabbit, we let him in, and he's back. Bray Wyatt. We're going to talk about that. But first, we're going to talk about some tales from the territories. Oh, y'all need to do the Mean Gene dance.
Mean Gene had a dance?
Mean Gene had a song, but he sang Tutti Frutti. I do know that. He was great on the piano. He had a famous burger chain, Mean Gene Burgers, and he was one of the animated characters on Hulk Hogan Rock and Wrestling.
He was on Rock and Wrestling.
Yeah, he was on Rock and Wrestling. But yeah, well, we'll have to look up what that Mean Gene dance is. But yeah, we're going to go back to the Wayback Machine. We're going to get pro wrestler Wayne on the line, and we're going to talk about some tales of the territory right after this fake break. Oh, the burgers were mid. That's sad.
On all new releases at Rogers Video.
Hi, Video Sam's got exciting news for you. You can now rent a video overnight and hire these great movies from only 99 cents. But the best news is that by purchasing our special package plan, you can have this VCR absolutely free. Ring now, 892-3311 for details of this amazing offer. You could have a video at home tonight. Remember, 892-3311. Video Sam's libraries are convenient to you.
Okay, the microphones are turned on.
We are back. We are back. All right. You ready? You ready to do this? We were already in the Wayback Machine. JJ has me a little bummed because I always wanted to try Mean Gene's burgers, and he said they were a little mid.
Where did Mean Gene Burgers exist? Was there in Texas?
I don't know. We'll have to get JJ to dig in there. I don't know. I didn't know if they were nationwide or if they were in the frozen food section. If it was like a White Castle that you had to kind of, I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. We'll have to dig a little bit deeper on that one. But we're in the Wayback Machine, so we're going to bring in Wayne. Wayne, are you there?
Yes, sir. What's going on, guys?
What's going on, brother? So Wayne is
a pro wrestler.
Yes, pro wrestler.
Who calls into the show sometimes and explains pro wrestling things.
Yes, pro wrestler.
Just for the audience who might not be aware.
Also producer and Wikipedia. I lost the gimmick that I gave you. It's just like he's the human Wikipedia. He was before Wikipedia. We'd be driving on the road, and there was Wayne explaining how Star Wars was connected. Everything was connected. So I got a little bit of all of it. So Wayne,
like a conspiracy theory,
but the Star Wars version. So let's talk about Tales from the Territory. So just for our listeners out there and for us in here as well, some of those road tales we would talk about was Memphis wrestling, which can be argued is probably some of the most influential pro wrestling in all of pro wrestling. So Wayne, so when we saw Tales from the Territories, and the first episode, boom, right out of the gate was Memphis wrestling, and they had Dutch Mantell, Jerry the King Lawler, Jerry Jarrett, Jeff Jarrett, like right out of the gate. I was like, whoa, like they are just
and the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart.
Oh yes, and they had Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart too. So how accurate would you say? You know, you grew up watching Memphis wrestling, right?
I did.
So how accurate would you say that this was? I mean, the boys tend to, I once caught a fish this big, but a lot of this was pretty accurate of saying like where the pro wrestling was real.
It was. They, way before there was extreme pro wrestling, they were doing that. Strap matches, coal miner glove matches, scaffold matches, first to bleed matches. They did it all, everything. Brawling in the stands, brawling in the concession area. They brawled everywhere. Their angles ranged in. I remember Jimmy Valiant jumping Jerry Lawler when Lawler was doing a concert. He literally put out an album in the 70s, and he was doing a concert. And Valiant came out at the end, jumped him, and busted his guitar over his head.
Yeah, that's unreal because that was even at a wrestling show, right? That was a separate concert
That was
event.
a totally... Jerry Lawler was the king of Memphis, and not just in wrestling. Jerry Lawler actually retaliated. He jumped Jimmy Valiant at the airport and broke his leg at the airport.
Can you imagine trying to run an angle now at the airport where you're trying to break someone's leg? What the airport security would swarm you?
Well, the problem that they alluded to on the show is they drew such a huge share, over a 70% share.
That's
so 7 in
unreal.
10 households watched Saturday morning wrestling, and I remember. We lived in a little town called Blytheville, Arkansas, about an hour and a half, 2 hours out of Memphis. I was little, so I don't know exactly how long. Anyway, we owned a restaurant, and people would come in, and all they would talk about was wrestling. the day, we were on the tour stop, and when somebody would come in the day of the show, they would start saying, "Oh, I hope Lawler throws this fire. Oh, I hope he throws fire tonight." And sure enough, the fire would come out, and he'd throw a flash, fire right in someone's face. And that's all that night and into Saturday morning. They would be talking. And, of course, the restaurant cleared out when wrestling came on TV. They're not kidding. Businesses shut down. What was it Jimmy Hart said? Farmers got off their tractors, yeah. Which is a famous line that comes from Mr. Jeff Gretler.
Yes, sorry. I owe an apology to the FCC circa 1994, yes. East Texas.
Yes. Jeff was sitting in the radio booth, and he went off. And he said, "Get down off your John Deere tractor and scrape the pig shit off your boot." And the guy that was on duty come running down the hall. "He can't say that. Stop him! Stop him!" And of course, Jeff had locked the door, and he couldn't get in.
I was like, "This is good, right? This is good stuff." Trying to get tickets, man.
You did a Shawshank Redemption on it.
Yeah, did the whole sitting back like Andy.
Yeah.
Jeff just enjoyed what he just said.
And to make matters worse, this was in deep East Texas.
Yeah.
Texas's Bible Belt. And the club that we were running that afternoon, the owner looked at the promoter, and he had a bad stutter, and he goes, "Did he say what I think he said?" and Rusty just put his head down like, "Oh my God, yes." And he goes, They're going to find me.
Oh, the 90s, it was such a lawless time. But it was good stuff. But, like you said, a lot of, especially that, East Texas had a little bit of that too. What Memphis had is it was somewhat of a shoot, right? Like, even though kayfabe was already out of the bag, they still were into it and shoot, but not as much as it was in the 70s. I mean, Lawler's story about that fan waiting for him outside with that brick, and he got that brand new car, and he's like, if you throw that brick, I'm going to run you over. And the guy still threw it anyway, and I guess the car not going in there basically stopped Lawler from hitting this guy with a car, which ironically, they ran that angle with Eddie Gilbert, who went too fast and hit Lawler with a car. And the same thing basically happened because that was not worked. He hit him with the car.
Yes, he did.
And that
he did. That freaked out all of Memphis, the whole territory, because they covered Arkansas, Mississippi, Kentucky. The whole territory lit up. And people were calling in and calling the police and wanted Gilbert arrested for attempted murder.
Oh, man. Yeah, and that was a bad hit. R.I.P. to Eddie Gilbert. Mario, I don't know if you know this. My first match was against Wayne. My second match was against Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert.
You did tell me about that.
Yeah, who beat me down with a cane. So when I'm going to work, this legend, and if he wouldn't have passed away earlier, I think he would have been a big part of the business. But that was one of the main things that I thought of because we grew up on WWF. We didn't get a lot of this stuff, but there would be a Pro Wrestling Illustrated show or something in the magazines with Joe Pedicino or Bill Apter. And I remember it's like, this is the guy that ran over Jerry the King Lawler with the car because that hit was bad. And then Lawler almost had to reenact that in real life with the guy who threw the brick. Wayne, what about, do you, like a lot of these stories, I don't know if you remembered watching him on the air. What about the story of that guy who had the blow dart and hit the blow dart in Jimmy Hart's ass?
That was funny. I laughed when I saw that, and then I got to thinking, holy cow, man, how dangerous is that?
It could have been anything on that dart.
And you can put anything on a dart for sure.
My germophobic ass, if someone had shot me, I'd have been down at the emergency room screaming, I have AIDS, I have Hep C, I would have been freaked out about that,
Yeah, and dude, he's so...
How does that idea even get in someone's head that I'm going to shoot a blow dart at a wrestler? It's like, oh, I'm going to hit him, he's such a jerk. But it's like, no, I'm going to order a blow dart gun off of the back of a comic.
That one was homemade, and that was that's hillbilly country up there. It's not a stereotype, and that's how they take down squirrels.
With blow darts?
Sure.
Shoot
Those
a blow.
Hunters, absolutely.
They shoot blow darts at squirrels?
You better believe. There's some crazy stuff goes up in those Ozarks and around Tennessee.
You'd have to be pretty. Squirrels are fast.
Yeah,
I don't think you can catch them with a blow dart.
Well,
they stop sooner or later. Oh my goodness! If I was Jimmy Hart, I would have freaked out. And of course, the funny thing to me is he was worried about his pay. Like, I don't want to go have to pay for a tetanus shot. I'm like, that's what you're worried about? Your pay?
And I love the idea of they basically had the cops and the building security that had pro wrestling justice back then. Well, if you started a fight, kind of like if you were cheating a casino, they brought you to the back and let the wrestlers work you over. And that story of Jimmy Hart's like, so they brought him back. He's like, we caught him. Do you want to lump him up a little? He's like, no, I'm okay. Because he's like, this guy's way bigger than me. I'm not going to be able to do anything to him. But they would literally bring these people back and let the wrestlers take shots at him. That's lawless. That's crazy.
I heard a few veterans tell stories about that, where the cops would take them to the back. But that's a good deterrent. I saw a match right there in my hometown there. Blytheville, Arkansas. I watched a match. It was Eddie Gilbert and Tommy Gilbert versus Kurt Hennig and Larry the Axe Hennig, father and son tag teams taking each other. on, and a guy got upset and jumped up on the ring apron, and Eddie Gilbert flew over there and hit him, and blood went everywhere. The guy flew off the ring apron and landed on the first row of chairs, and the cops come and took him out. And I was a little kid, and I was thinking to myself, oh my God, he got so mad. He don't even get to see the main event. But the cops thought he got enough, I guess, because as soon as that match was over, they let him go back to his seat. So,
can you imagine in 2022 at an AEW show that somebody takes a swing at a wrestler and they pull him out of the crowd, bring him to the back, let the wrestlers lump him up, and then they send him back to their seat? And that would obviously that would
be a huge scandal.
That would be a huge scandal.
Yeah.
Oh, well, the whole world is freaking out over a couple little pushing matches between the wrestlers in the back now. So
right, yeah, that was big. That probably was more of a pushing match than anything. We know that it's going to be tough to get any shots in before you take it to the ground. There was no hits. And that was even more tame than the generation before with the story of Jerry Jarrett. And you had that one promoter's like, oh, this guy's trying to take my job. Tries to go into business for himself, runs in the ring. And Jerry Jarrett's like, this guy may kill me. I got to take him out. And he ripped his eyeball out.
Yes.
What? Can you imagine right now? It's like,
yeah, when I saw that part, I was like, he really ripped his eyeball out?
That was
he really did.
Figure of speech.
No.
Well, we've always heard the story of Haku, getting in the barroom brawls and they go for your eyes, right? That's what the old school wrestlers like. We're not looking to best you in just like a machismo contest. We're looking to basically incapacitate you so where no one gets hurt. Can you imagine if Tony?
You also have to remember, Mario, in those days, the period that you're talking about. If a wrestler lost a barroom brawl, I don't care who he was. I don't care if he's the champion of the territory. I don't care. He's done. He is blacklisted and out.
Yeah.
So if you put 10 years into the business and finally got to the main event and you're finally getting main event pay, it's over. And so you can't lose a barroom fight. You just can't. Don't care how big the guy is. There's no excuses. You had to win. So if you had to go for his eyes, you had to go for his throat. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't know if our trainer, Tugboat Taylor, told you, but Tug put his thumbs in the corner of my eye, and he said, right here, if you put a little pressure right here, go in, you feel the cord pull out. So our own trainer taught me.
Yeah, he taught me the ear. To this day, I still talk when I'm doing when I'm training people in kickboxing. I explain to them the Tug story of just how I think this was Sputnik, how easy it is to remove somebody's ear. There's just that's just a little bit of cartilage. I did not hear that one. It was that's just a little bit of cartilage. If you grab that, it'll come right off. So when I'm teaching combos, I'm like, you just grab that ear. It's combos are nice for exercise, but if this is a self-defense, as you're hitting them, grab an ear.
Yeah.
And just pull.
Just Reservoir Dog that ear.
But so Wayne, I was going to ask you what I was really curious about. So there was a second episode, right? And it got into Andy Kaufman, who...
Oh, I haven't seen the second episode. It's out.
Yeah, it is out, and it's all about Andy Kaufman, which we talked about this. We've done a whole podcast and show about Andy Kaufman. I'm from Hollywood. He just got it. And, he got it, and he went to probably the best place he could go because WWE wasn't, F at the time wasn't interested to have somebody who loved working people. He loved living the gimmick. Is there any stories, Wayne, that you can talk about? Do you remember specifically with Andy Kaufman?
Yes, actually, that was a very interesting episode. There's some little details in there that I didn't know about. How they handled him, how hard it was to deal with him at times. Although he had extreme love and respect for the business, his kind of mania and staying in character got out of hand with him a little bit. In fact, Jimmy Hart had to kind of be his handler / babysitter. And it was an excellent episode. And one thing that just stuck out to me is how much respect everyone involved that was there had for Andy Kaufman, how much he loved the business. And they covered what you're talking about, that he approached WWE, and Vince McMahon Sr. turned him back and said that he wasn't sure he wanted to have a Hollywood actor around the wrestling threatening the kayfabe status of the WWE. But of course, the Memphis territory was a little bit more wild, a little bit more crazy. And so they took him right in, and the rest is history. It was one of the best angles ever executed in wrestling, and a lot of that is the dedication of Andy Kaufman. He sold it unbelievable. He took that pile driver and he demanded an ambulance come. He paid to stay in a hospital for 3 straight days, and he was working the doctors and nurses. It was amazing.
I love that idea of the referee going back and forth, and he's going to Jerry Lawler. It's like, and he says he wants an ambulance. Tell him no, it's too expensive. And then go back and he said he'll pay for it. Okay, let's get an ambulance.
That is wrestling in a nutshell right there, because in those days the money was everything.
Yeah.
That's why you hear, when you see those old shoot videos, the legends always talk about doing business.
Yeah.
You got to do business. You got to sell it. You got to do business.
Smart business.
And something real quick that I want to throw in before we move too fast, that you said earlier about them talking about wrestling and Memphis being real. It looked real. They were working everything, and everybody worked very light in Memphis, except, of course, some of the extreme chair shots and stuff like that. Although wrestlers in Memphis put their hands up, none of this stuff that they have today where you don't have any guts if you put your hands up. It still looked devastating, and the fans still bought it. And one of the best quotes that I've ever heard about then versus now, Jerry Lawler said, not in the show, I saw him in a separate interview, but he said, it's ironic that in the old days, we barely touched each other and everybody thought it was real. Nowadays, they knock the living hell out of each other and everybody thinks it's fake.
Yeah. Man, here. That was I love that quote coming from a wrestling legend who knew how to work and got elbows that were so stiff that basically jarred his heart out of rhythm and caused a heart attack live. Meanwhile, this is coming from the guy that had a match with, I'm from Hollywood comedian, barely touched each other and had people clamoring from the rooftops. And wait, there was hardly any contact in that original match.
No, yes.
Like they sold the
although that suplex on the back of Kaufman's head looked nasty to me.
Oh, it did, man. It really did. That was like 3 moves, right? He gave him the belly to back, a vertical suplex, and a pile driver, right?
That was it.
3
Why
moves.
was it so nasty? Did Andy know how to take that bump, or why did it look so bad?
I think he was just so light, he ragdolled him, right?
Yeah, he kind of fell backwards instead of dropping him straight down, and Andy didn't know how to really tuck his chin and kick and keep his momentum where it would land on his shoulders and back.
Unreal. But people were frothing an angle that took, for years they made money off that angle. And it leaked into the mainstream, right? They're like, oh, we got to get him off SNL. He's just too into this wrestling stuff, where now, there's somebody wrote a great article. It's like, just admit it, you're a fan of pro wrestling, because we see the influences all over sports.
What's wild is that if you watch that I'm From Hollywood documentary where they talk about that whole Memphis wrestling thing, like they interview like other celebrities at the beginning of the documentary, and it's like Tony Danza and Robin Williams, and they're like, yeah, Andy really had a problem. He was wearing his wrestling gear under his regular clothes. I think he needed help. And they do like this whole thing like it's serious. You know what I mean? Like they had genuine concern for his mental health, and he was just wrestling.
He was just living his gimmick. He was living the gimmick.
Yeah.
We know people who wore their titles to strip clubs. You're living your gimmick.
Why wouldn't you? If I had a title, I'd wear it under my clothes every day.
Oh, so Wayne, I got to ask you: are there any so I haven't seen the second episode, but are there any stories that you remember about Memphis wrestling that they didn't cover that kind of shows whether it was a shoot angle or if it was a worked angle? Is there any that stuck to your head? Like we all had that moment. Like I remember the Piper's Pit and just like me and Gene explaining like how somebody could be so wretched, so horrible, can turn into a pro wrestler like this. And I'm like, oh, cool, you can be a wrestler? Like, do you remember any of those stories in Memphis? Like, is there one that sticks out for you?
Oh my goodness!
I know there's tons.
Of course, I covered the one at the airport. That was very cool. Man, my gosh. Well, one thing that really stands out that was unique to me about Memphis and other territories did this too, but the feud was usually between Jerry Lawler and whatever manager was on hand, Jimmy Hart, whoever, Jimmy Cornette, whoever. And so they would rotate heels through, and Jimmy Hart, as soon as Lawler in the blow-off match got rid of the latest heel, he would get jumped right after he won by the new find. Jimmy Hart had searched the country and found this heel to come in, and it was just they got years. It was Lawler versus Jimmy Hart, with rotating people representing Jimmy Hart, and they got years out of that.
Yeah.
And it was amazing, and Lawler would never get his hands on Jimmy Hart. He would get a punch in or maybe two, and someone else would jump it. And it was just the fans would show up week after week after week thinking this is the week Lawler's going to get his hands on Jimmy Hart, and it didn't happen. Much like in Mid-South. There was a 2-year angle between the Rock and Roll Express and the Midnight Express, and it never got boring. It was written so well, it never got boring. And today's wrestling, man, they don't have enough patience to get the 30-day cycle pay-per-views in on these angles sometimes.
Yeah, they don't let
and
it
that
marinate.
was really. But some of the stuff, like there's an old story where the Fabulous Ones. They were kind of introduced by Jackie Fargo, and Fargo used to do this walking strut where he would, swing his body. A lot of fans know the Fargo strut, but you can look it up enough. But anyway, the Fabulous Ones were endorsed by Jackie Fargo, so they got to do the Fargo strut, and they were babies, and they ruled. They were almost as big as Lawler, and you can't overestimate how big Lawler was.
Oh, yeah.
And one night on a house show, no TV camera or nothing, Coco Beware did the Fargo strut in his match. Now, the Fargo strut was famous. A lot of wrestlers did it, but at that point in time, it belonged to the Fabulous Ones. So they used to run split shows. And Lawler and the Fabulous Ones were going to Indianapolis, and Bill Dundee and some more mid-card guys was headed to a little town in Mississippi. The Fabulous Ones no-showed the show in Indianapolis and drove down to the show in Mississippi, and Steve Kern come through the back door, and everybody's like, what are you doing here? And he went straight, he said, where's Coco? And they said, he's in the shower. He went straight back into the shower and sucker punched Coco Beware over that Fargo strut on a house show.
Unreal.
And a naked, wet Coco Beware beat his ass, wore him out. They had to pull Coco Beware off of him. And if people don't know, that guy was thick he was literally the definition of a fire hydrant.
Yo, Coco?
And you didn't mess with Coco Beware.
Yeah, it's funny. Everyone remembers him as just like the Birdman and Frankie and how happy and go lucky he was. But I remember seeing him in person, and yeah, he was thicker than a Snicker. Like he had this neck that it was just like so much neck, like you couldn't imagine. And to now imagine that he basically had the history of violent shower fight with Steve Kern, Skinner, fabulous. That's unreal to think about.
Yeah. Another little funny story. This isn't as bombastic, but I always thought this was hilarious. Austin Idol, when he came into town, and all the boys got excited when Austin Idol showed up because their payoffs were going to go up across the territory. That man just could draw. But he was notorious he wanted it super light. He did not want to feel nothing. He didn't want to be touched. So he liked working Lawler because he wasn't gonna feel anything. It was a night off. And he didn't stay. He had done well with his money, so he kind of would come in and out. He wasn't really a full-time wrestler. So he came in, and him and Lawler were both babies, and they were working up to a tag match. And Lawler booked himself against Jesse the Body Ventura.
Oh, man.
Who you couldn't feel a thing. Ventura worked super light, and he put Austin Idol with Stan Hansen.
Oh, God.
And Idol threw a fit. And he went to Stan Hansen. He said, man, let's just take it easy. No big deal. They get in the ring. Stan Hansen starts beating the crap out of him.
Yeah.
So Idol starts saying something in the ring and is like, hey, man, lighten up. And he goes, yeah, no problem. Wham!
I mean, this is Stan the Man Hansen, Stan the Lariat Hansen, who took out Big Van Vader's eye with a shot. That's how stiff he was. Like, he didn't do the pluck. It was a punch that actually knocked his eyeball out with a punch. That's stiff. That's stiff. But yeah,
and that to me was wrestling in a nutshell right there. That's funny. That story, pulling a rib on Austin Idol, the guy that I'll come back, guys, if you give me somebody light, and they suckered him in with Stan Hansen.
That was just you're asking it. So JJ, he watched a lot of her he watched a lot of our stuff that we're wrestling in the Valley. And we talked about that story. I was just a rookie. I had no idea. I was like, oh man, I got a stomach ache. Don't work my stomach. I don't want an accident to happen in the middle of the ring. Oh, sure, no problem. And of course, you just might as well put a target on you at that point. So whatever you want, don't say it.
Mario, we're in this building, and the heels are dressing separate from the babies.
Yeah.
And they're the crowd, at that time the crowd was buying into everything. Kayfabe was alive. And the only way we had to communicate between the two locker rooms was a walkie-talkie. So I'm sitting there, and one of the refs comes and says, hey, man, Jeff wants to talk to you. And I go over there, and I pick up the walkie-talkie, and he says, hey, man, I'm sick at my stomach. I'm really having problems. I don't want to shit all over myself. Please tell Buddy to lay off. And I said, if I go over there and tell him, it's gonna be brutal. I don't think you should point that out. And he says, no, man, Buddy's cool. Just tell him, just talk to him. I mean, I'm being serious, Wayne. I'm really sick. And I said, okay, but I don't know if this is a good idea. And I went up to Buddy and I said, hey, Buddy, Jeff just sent a message over and asked me to tell you that he's really sick. He really needs you to lay off his gut. And he goes, oh, no problem, Wayne. I've been there. Don't worry about it. So the match starts. They tie up. Buddy backs him into a corner. Wham, 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 right in the gut with punches. Then he starts kicking him in the gut. He pulls him out and gives him a suplex. Opening move.
And this was, I was working as Jason the 13th, so I couldn't sell like I really wanted to sell how much bubble guts I had going on. This is when Wayne had the freaked out moment when, Mike, what's up, brother? Glad you made it in there. We gave the shot.
Mike!
But, Mara, this was the story where, Wayne, remember, you're like, hey, you leaned over the stall and I had the hockey mask up on my head, so it basically looked like Jason Voorhees was looking up at you sitting on the toilet, like, "Hey, you gonna be okay in there?"
Yeah. But the best part, Mario, there was no bathrooms for the wrestlers.
Yeah.
So Jeff is in the public bathroom, and this older Hispanic guy opened the door. Jeff had forgot to latch the door. And so here's Jason sitting on the toilet with his mask on, and he looks up and goes, "Hey, how's it going?" And everyone really did believe that Jason was a demon, and the guy starts saying, "Adios, oh, Diablo, Diablo," and runs out of the bathroom.
That's a movie right there.
Yeah,
to me.
that's kayfabe.
To me, that's a film.
Kayfabe was alive and well.
Y'all should write a movie together about wrestling in the Valley. I'll direct it for free.
We did. We wrote Kayfabe the series, and we actually had a lot of those stories.
Well, I was telling you the other day that, because we were talking about Tales of the Territories. If someone did a movie about Memphis wrestling in the 70s, 80s, that would be so awesome.
Oh, man, it would be.
A film, though, not like a documentary, just like a
straight up film.
A straight up, like, sort of fictionalized version of it where they incorporate a lot of these stories and events. Like that one where they're talking on Tales of the Territories about Waffle House and Macho Man getting in a fight at Waffle House.
Oh, I love that story. Why does so much stuff
Can you just
happen at
imagine
Waffle
you
House?
just have a Waffle House fight in a movie? That'd be so great. Y'all should write that.
And it was so great that it was just like out of nowhere too. Of just like you deciding like you were taking too long with his food. Like, who cares about your wedding, brother? And then they're freaking dueling with butter knives in a Waffle House.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff happened. You can just call the movie The Waffle House. When we have so many Waffle House stories. Are those pecan waffles? Your son is bleeding out. Yeah, but are those pecans in those waffles? So, Mari, this is what we're doing. You know, we're talking about how we're going to run a show, right? We're going to run a show here in Austin. This is this kind of stuff we got to do because we got to bring a little bit of that magic back into the show. We got to get people willing to go in and suspend their belief, which is difficult in 2022, but it can be done if you find a way to give them some kayfabe and take some kayfabe back.
Run it in the parking lot of a Waffle House.
Waffle House wrestling? I think I'd go. But yeah, we got to run a show. We got to find that magic, and maybe the magic is in those waffles.
I'm into it. Should definitely do a show.
So yeah, we're gonna do that. But let's jump here real quick. Wayne, did you get a chance to see? Oh, yeah, you got a chance because I kept texting you. And Mike, I'm glad you're on too because I was texting Mike all throughout this whole event. The return of Bray Wyatt at Extreme Rules is being heralded as one of the greatest returns of all time. And we've seen some great returns. I mean, CM Punk's return last year, you would say that's in there. But you had like Ultimate Warrior, WrestleMania 6, but this one was different in a sense that it was very cinematic. Would you guys say that Bray Wyatt's return was one of the greatest pro wrestling returns of all time?
I would. I think that was a little bit of old school. They built so much anticipation. They used new technology to do it. And they built it up week after week after week. And then even in the event when they were flashing around, showing different characters and highlighting all over, they even built anticipation in the moment, like, oh my gosh, which one is going to be him?
Yeah.
And then when that door blew open and that lantern, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was mad. Like to have it that cinematic where it wasn't a straight up return, like you just had his music hit or somebody just run out, you know. Like I said, the buildup of that and then like showing all his past characters. But you knew it was him immediately when they started singing, you know, he's got the whole world in their hands. Everybody was expecting it to be him, but when the Fireflies came out right after the main event, and it had nothing to do with the main event, and it was just this 5 to 7 minute parade of the Bray Wyatt character and all his iterations. It was great. Mario, what were your thoughts on that return? Did you feel that best of all time?
I think it's up there for sure. I think it was great. Yeah.
I think Bray Wyatt is going to now get what he should have probably had all along, is complete creative control of his character. And you know, Triple H hired somebody that was formerly from Marvel Studios that is basically going to be the director of long-term storytelling.
Yeah.
To connect that together. And Bray Wyatt is perfect for that, because Bray Wyatt is accomplishing, and I tweeted this out when this happened. It's just like the man who was on pace to have a legacy as big as The Undertaker. I'm saying it. He could be as big as The Undertaker if you would just let him go. Because with Bray Wyatt, he is keeping his character kayfabe, and that's why this works. And you can say, how can a character, who bases it around puppets and light shows, how can he keep kayfabe? He did. He freaking did. I mean, these are puppets that came to life, and he had the whole world literally in his hands. So he is perfect for long-term storytelling and keeping that kayfabe and getting people to suspend their belief on something that's completely unbelievable. JJ said Kevin Feige to WWE. Is that why he paused all his films? Because he needs to go interview with Triple H. But this is pretty cool to be happening in 2022, to like have kayfabe suspended, because he got a pop. There was nobody, oh man, I can't believe Bray Wyatt's back. And he's hitting that stage where The Undertaker hit, who was very comical in the beginning, and then people realized there's something special about this, and the crowd turned. I think the hardest part they're going to have is Bray Wyatt being a heel. Are you going to want to boo this man?
I don't think he'll be a heel right out the gate, right?
What do you think, Wayne? I don't know. I don't think they can.
What are they going to do with him? I mean, like his introduction is great, but now where do you put him? What kind of program is he in? Bobby Lashley?
No, that's the thing. You gotta. I don't know
who is able to be in a program with him.
Well, here's what I would do, and Wayne, stop me if I think you're in the same line. I think Cody has to find that way to dethrone Roman, and then it's got to be Bray Wyatt going after Cody, because we know Roman's going to be setting up for The Rock. They don't need a belt at WrestleMania in LA. They don't need that belt. I think Cody versus Bray for the belt is the way to go. Wayne, what do you think?
I think that's a good call. I don't think you have to rush it. I think let him marinate in his character. I mean, what he's doing is different. In a business full of guys wrestling the same, looking the same, sounding the same, cutting the same promos, this guy is different. And he's different historical. I can't think of a character that was similar. I can't think of anybody that did that same character or even anything close. And I just love that it's different. I say, you can just keep letting him do promos and letting him, make little appearances and stuff for a while. You don't have to rush it. And like you say, let some of the other angles, but you definitely got to put him to the top. I don't think you put him with a mid card. You've got to drive him to the top of that card and, get the mileage out of it. Because like you say, he is this generation's Undertaker.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike brought up a good point, because Raw could be the belt show and SmackDown becomes more narrative and wild. I say, I was saying, Bray gets the belt, but he is that character who doesn't necessarily need the belt, but you're going to want to have that belt on him eventually, because how do you, if you're getting into the psychology of pro wrestling and where one athlete has to try to figure out how to, defeat another athlete, how do you figure out what Bray Wyatt's going to do? The mind games that he's going to be able to play live on the air is going to be so memorable. I mean, one of the best moments to come out of the Pandy WrestleMania, of the cinematic matches, was that John Cena versus Bray Wyatt in that Firefly Funhouse match where you didn't expect it. And it was so cinematic, but his legacy, in pro wrestling, right, coming from, his grandfather's Blackjack Mulligan, his father, Mike Rotunda, IRS, he he has that same thing that The Rock has, that the wrestling is in his blood, and he's going to know the notes to hit and then add his twist on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, from the time he was a kid, he understood the business.
Yeah, it's just in
a way that you and I had to learn, because we didn't have relatives to teach us the business and talk about it when we were around the kitchen table. We had to go in and learn it from scratch. Legacy wrestlers come in already knowing the business. They just have to find their place. And this guy, his place is so unique. It's so different.
It's unreal to think that. And we've talked about Bo Dallas wanting to come back and be at Bo Dallas.
I heard the rumor that they signed Bo Dallas already back here.
His return is imminent.
So then they could finally team them up.
There's got to be something there that you got to put there.
It seems easy.
It's a slam dunk. He'll work that. He has that same cool psychotic vibe. When he was one of the Bo Levers.
When he was doing the Bo Levers, that was great.
Yeah, that was so good.
My one thing about WWE is I feel like it's getting better, and I really want to take a liking to it and I want to enjoy it more. One thing about WWE is still, the thing about AEW that appeals to me is how raw it is.
Yeah.
It has that feeling of a show put together, whereas WWE, when I watch it, it's too shiny. It feels like product. And I want them to just dress it down a little. Just, you know what I mean? I don't know, maybe one show dress it down, which will probably be NXT, but it just, I don't know. It's too flashy sometimes. I'm just like, I appreciate and I miss the AEW rawness, where it just feels like a wrestling show and not a fake sports program.
Isn't that ironic that that's what Monday Night Raw was the answer? Wrestling was starting to look a little bit too cartoony.
Yeah.
And Vince had to compete, so he came up with Monday Night Raw.
There you go.
Smaller arenas, more intimate, the same building. They were running that same building in New York to get that Raw feeling, and it worked. So I can see Triple H doing that for sure. I mean, he's bringing everybody back. He's actually what Tony Khan and Triple H have in common is they care about what the fans think. Vince stopped caring about what the fans think. Whatever corporate line he said or not, Vince stopped caring about what the fans think, and Triple H does care what the fans think. He does want to give the people what they want to see. Mm-hmm. And Mike brought it up here. Bray Wyatt's mask is made by the same guy who made the Grabber's mask, the black phone.
Oh, the black phone. Yeah, it felt like a black phone.
Yeah, same guy. So he's actually leaning into what is current and hot, because the Black Phone was a very popular, great movie, and it's kind of in the zeitgeist. Vince would have never done that. Vince was completely out of touch. Triple H is in touch. He's making Tony Khan have to work harder, and this is going to be a good test. And Tony Khan called it. He's like, their show is definitely getting better. I like the challenge. Well, good. I'm glad you like the challenge, because the challenge is coming. Mike called this. You are going to have to up your game, and they're going to have to do some stuff that's not like, Wayne, you brought this up. I forgot which promoter you're talking about, where you weren't building cool stories. You're like, oh, that person never worked that person. That would be cool to see them work each other, instead of like, okay, that would be cool to do this. How are we going to set this up? Let's book this out for 6 weeks. You can't just keep throwing people together. That hot-shotting those angles didn't work for Nitro, and it's not going to work for AEW. So you are going to have to do something that leans in. So AEW needs a big signing now more than ever. After they're struggling because they had the scrum ride from hell. Then they had Sammy fighting Andrade in the back of the locker room. They had more hands being thrown, or like Wayne said, maybe it was just a pushing match. They got to start doing something that's positive. So I don't know who they can sign, though, to do that, but they can't just be putting two cool wrestlers together to see a match, because it's making them feel smaller. It's going in the opposite direction.
Do they need that? I feel like they've signed everybody they can possibly sign. Who the hell's even left now at this point?
No, I don't think there's any.
So do they need that, or do they need a hot angle?
They need a hot angle.
They need something that can seep into the mainstream.
Well, they had a hot angle. The scrum ride from hell was an angle that was thrown into their lap.
It's gone now.
Yeah, they treated it like an HR event instead of an angle.
Exactly.
Where the HR should have happened in the back, and the angle should have continued in the front. And I forgot what wrestler said that. Said this is the biggest piece of business AEW has had since the company started. Let's see what they go with it. And they squashed it because it became a real HR event instead of an angle. But you're right, and a hot angle is what they need.
They need something that can cross over into some mainstream conversations.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Obviously the NWO is a once in a lifetime angle, but that angle got folks to check out WCW. You know what I mean? People was like, what's going on? This is how can you recreate that? How can you recreate something that actually makes people believe wrestling, that buy into kayfabe, and just check it out. Just tune in to see what's going on.
Yeah.
That's really all you want, right? You just want people to tune in to see what's going on.
And they were close. And they before the Scrum Ride from Hell, they actually had that with MJF. They started leaning into that. And he's just like, fire me, you effing Mark. I'm going, the great bidding war of 2024 is coming. And then I feel like, okay, never mind. They gave a fake phone call. They signed him. And then it got overshadowed by the Scrum Ride from Hell. And then next now he's just part of the, he's just part of the business now. And he's the most over guy they got. But they could have made him part of the mainstream if they somehow leaned into that Brian Pillman approach that they took. It's like, maybe show him showing up at the WWE building. Maybe accidentally show him on NXT TV. Have him buy a ticket. Like, really lean into that. Where it was like, oops, you weren't supposed to see that. That's when people are going to start really leaning into getting that mainstream fans in there. What do you think, Wayne?
I don't know. I don't know their structure right now in the back, writing angles and stuff. Everything I've heard is the boys kind of have autonomy with a little bit of, guidance. How do you organize into something like that? Like, to me, these fights were the ticket. So, but can you, in 2022, can you write angles around that? Because my first thought is, well, if you're going to squash the real fights, then write fights, but now you've established if there's a fight, HR is going to get involved. So you can't even do that. Like they've kind of squashed the ability to shoot fights in the locker room. I don't know what you do with AEW. I don't know how you reel it in. The ratings are down for a reason. You can only hot shot so much.
Yeah.
And the feuds just, I don't even know who's got a feud right now. I mean, what's the hot feud? Because the matches look the same to me because they're all wrestled the same style, a main event style. Let's hit so many finishes, blah blah blah, false finishes. Everybody's talked that to death. But how does anybody, when there's no pacing, there's no structure, how do you stand out? How do you get an angle to stand out above the show? Everybody's working to the fullest extent, as fast and as hard as they possibly can. There is no pacing. There's no roller coaster ride. What do you do with that? How do you get an angle to stand out? I mean, do you start? I mean, I get your point, Mario, that WWE is overproduced. And I cannot think of the name. Who's the guy in the back that's the top TV producer?
Oh, Kevin Dunn?
Kevin Dunn. As long as he's there, it's going to be overproduced, and it's going to be the same show. They're going to open with talking for the first 10 to 15 minutes. It's going to be the same show over and over. To me, he's as big an impediment almost as Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if he's being reeled in by Triple H, but the last few Raws, they seemed better. The segments felt more like wrestling, more, like, okay, now we're getting the storytelling, but it was still organized the same way. It still had the same feel. You still had the main event in the middle of the card. I mean, it's still, I can tell you what the next 5 Raw, the next 5 Raws, what the show is going to be structured as, because they're all structured the same.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a happy medium. What you're talking about, a hot angle, you need stories. You need a storyline. You need angles in AEW. Every show feels like, to me, like, okay, we've never seen this wrestler and this wrestler. Let's throw them out. And Mario mentioned it. How many wrestlers are on under contract right now? Everybody is part of a faction. It's gang warfare. Every match looks like a dadgum lumberjack match.
Yeah.
If they ran an actual lumberjack match right now, would it really look much different than most of their matches?
You're right. I think he tries to get everybody in, let everybody get their stuff in, get their peoples in, and that's tough.
And as a former wrestler that scratched and clawed for every last little inch and every dime that I ever made in the business, I applaud that. I completely, I wish there had been promoters. I wish there was something like that when you and I were running the roads. But the truth of the matter is, at a certain point, I started booking. And then I started worrying about the entire card, not just my match. And I started seeing how you structure it, how you pace, not just the matches, you pace the entire card, and how you get reactions from crowds with different style wrestlers. And that's what's missing to me. It just looks like chaos.
Yeah.
And their moves are spectacular. But at the same time, sometimes I'm thinking to myself, did they go to wrestling school or did they go to gymnastics school?
Accurate.
And so I think that the answer to what y'all are saying is they've got to have, they need a voice. They need someone on top, structuring the show, structuring the matches, writing out the angles, and giving it a direction. To me, it feels and looks directionless. But they're doing a great job of creating stars. They're doing a great job of creating young stars.
Yeah.
You've got to put them. You've got to make their character worth following, and you got to play to the emotions.
Wasn't that one of the signs on Tales from the Territory? And it was a JR quote. But remember the sign that was hanging up in the Memphis wrestling locker room? Personal issues make money.
Yes.
That was the sign in there. So let's take this. The Acclaimed was so over. Like very close to, they could get into the zeitgeist where they can get people, when you can get people at sporting events either wearing your shirt or gimmicking or recreating your gimmick, you're over. And Scissor Me is very close to getting over. JJ said it right. Like Billy Gunn is as over as when he was in DX. He didn't even show up to the DX reunion because he's in this super hot angle. Find a way to get the Acclaim at a sporting event to do a rap before a show to get to the point where you get people doing your hand sign. Wrestling's always big about hand signs. Doing your hand sign, getting something that'll get you in the book them for this. Like we're gonna have Max Caster cut a rap about the opposing sports team. You own the Jaguars.
You don't even have to do it to that level. Like you could have a viral video. Like what if somebody booked the Acclaim for a bar mitzvah? And they introduced the kid and cut a rap on him. And that just goes up on TikTok.
That's the only two thing that's gonna get you over is doing something that's mainstream, which is now TikTok. Good point. Or the other time tested the theory that works is booking the right celebrity to get you over. Mike brought up Mr. T. The Monday Night War shifted when Vince McMahon booked Mike Tyson. Tony Khan was close, right? He was getting there. When he booked Shaq, he started getting that celebrities, but that also felt produced. You need something that's going to make you wonder. Like Roddy Piper made you wonder. He's like, you know what? I don't really want to put Mr. T over. I might go into business for myself and punch this guy in the mouth. Mm-hmm. He might do it. The whole thing with Tyson, everybody watched it because, like Mike Tyson, he was a killer at the time. What is Steve Austin, their in-house killer, going to do with Mike Tyson? And you're like, man, I don't know. What if Tyson punches him? What is Steve Austin going to do? Even just giving him the finger and then the face push was enough to shift the tide. Is there a celebrity out there that can do it? WWE's they're signing the celebrities. They got Ronda, they got Logan Paul, who are who have a high work rate for whatever reason. But you need that celebrity that you're not quite sure what's going to happen when they show up.
Yeah.
I think
any celebrity that has any kind of following, you can get the rub off of them.
Yeah. We were talking about Andy
and
Kaufman.
Funny story, what you brought up about Tyson. When I was working there in San Antonio for Shawn Michaels, he told me about that angle. And he said he went to Vince before that WrestleMania show. A lot of people don't realize that was his last match for a long time because he had cracked his back in a match with Undertaker, a casket match, and he took a bump and it put him out. And he held on to drop the strap to Stone Cold. And the night of that match, he went in and he went to Vince and he said, "Hey, man, I don't mind putting over Steve for the title, but I'm really worried about Tyson punching me. I don't want to, my last match in here, I don't want Tyson, shattering my jaw or something." And Vince took him to Mike and he said, "Hey, Mike, he's worried about you cracking his jaw when you throw that punch." And he said, he stood up, walked over to me, and he threw a punch at my face. And he said, I couldn't see it. He said, it was so fast, I could not see it. All of a sudden, his fist was just a half an inch from my jaw. And he says, "Is that good enough?" and Shawn said, I jumped back. He said, "Holy shit." He said, I jumped back. And he said, then it dawned on me, he really did stop it. He says, "Okay, good enough for me."
But the fans didn't know that at the time, right? Like, you didn't know that Tyson can throw a working punch, right?
Yeah.
That he might throw. So there was a real sense of danger. So maybe that's what...
Even Shawn Michaels thought there was a sense of danger.
So maybe that's what AEW needs, is maybe they need that unsure celebrity that might go in there and go into business for himself.
Hey, maybe do a series. Maybe one week you have them bump into some influencer, some top influencer doing that, the scissor with them. Then have a sports athlete come in there. Each week somebody does it with them. One-offs. It's not like Tony Khan doesn't have the money to bring them in.
Oh, yeah. No, he does. He said challenge accepted.
If you convince the people that even all the celebrities, all the influencers, man, they just want their shot at doing it with them, now you're turning them into stars. The rub works.
The rub works. And merch, seeing your merch everywhere. When you saw the NWA shirts, the Scissor Me shirts are the number one seller. Get those out there to celebrities. Get those out there into the mainstream so people like, hey, what is that? Get people, because again, it's not the product. They got the wrestlers, they got the TV time, they got everything. They just need to slow it down and make their shots count. Do the colors thing. Don't run down and screw one. Walk down and screw them all. There's your angle. All right, we're getting close to that too, but we gotta. This is hot off the presses, so we gotta end on this spot because it's gonna be a little controversial. I gotta warn you. It might be a little controversial. Some people may at us on there, but I had to reply to this tweet where very dear, close, personal, longtime friend of the show. I like to say that. R.I.P. Mean Gene. This is coming from Busted Open Radio, Dave LaGreca. They did a spot on should Cyndi Lauper be in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, the celebrity wing. And I put out here that Cyndi Lauper not in the celebrity wing of the Hall of Fame is as big as a travesty as Bruno Sammartino not being in the main wing for all that time.
I don't know why she wouldn't already be in it.
Because Vince...
I think she'd be in it, but I don't know if I can go with you on Bruno Sammartino.
That's where people are going to at me. But think about this. Oh,
you're from the Northeast,
that's
man.
Right.
How can you do that?
But
you're going to lose your Long Island license on that one.
Yeah, but Cyndi Lauper is also, she's a tri-state area coming from Captain Lou as a train. Now, again, this could be very controversial because rock and wrestling changed professional wrestling forever. forever. Helped. It could be argued that that's got what really also got Hulk Hogan as over as that, and that was Cyndi Lauper having the she-balls to put Captain Lou Albano in a music video to get him the celebrity rub, to the point where that became the hottest angle in pro wrestling leading to WrestleMania. But before WrestleMania was the War to Settle the Score, a super show that had Hulk Hogan versus Roddy Piper because of Cyndi Lauper.
You could argue that's why Captain Lou got the Super Mario Brothers gig.
That is 100%.
He would not have been booked on that otherwise.
So she's not.
Because he was really bad.
Mario,
yeah.
Don't encourage him.
She's not the celebrity version of Bruno Sammartino being snubbed for the Hall of. Well, now granted, Triple H fixed that, so maybe it's not the same. She Balls is JJ's favorite Cyndi Lauper song. It's a fun fact. But
I am not sure that there is a wrestling equivalent of Bruno Sammartino, much less. I didn't see any of the matches from the Northeast. I've never seen a Bruno Sammartino match, and he's on my Mount Rushmore. I mean, the dadgum. Oh, the Pope asked for an audience with Bruno Sammartino. Yeah. The Pope.
I told you it was going to be controversial. I told you it'd be controversial. But
how many chair shots did you take through the year?
There's so many celebrities that had a fraction of the impact that Cyndi Lauper did. She made Hulk Hogan 1 degree of Kevin Bacon from Steven Spielberg through the Goonies. Roddy Piper, you can take those Goonies, stick those Goonies up your nose.
She should be, and I mean,
she should definitely be
100%. She was a huge part of wrestling. What was that, 84? In 84.
84, yeah, before WrestleMania. I mean, it could be argued that because of what she did, we have WrestleMania.
How could she not be in, and Liberace is?
Yeah, Liberace, and he was literally all he did, he was the timekeeper, right? And he had his little bell, and he came out there with the Rockettes, and that was it. You never seen Liberace in wrestling.
Not to get political, but Donald Trump is also in it.
Donald Trump is in there. But I mean, at least for Trump, you can say that he had, he was part of WrestleMania 4, WrestleMania 5. He had the buildings. He had a main event match. He did a lot of wrestling stuff before, so the politics aside, he did that. There's like Kid Rock sang a couple of anthems for that. But he didn't, you could have got, Limp Bizkit. You could have got other songs that you could have plugged in there. Could you have gotten somebody at the time when it was unprecedented? They made the wrestling album with David Wolf, who, that worked with Jimmy Hart, that brought wrestling to start making their own music was because of Cyndi Lauper. She, they were doing kayfabe. Captain Lou was in a couple of videos, and then they gave him the award and, broke the award over his head, and he got power slammed, and they got Wendy Richter over. And at the time, there's a Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine cover that said, Wendy Richter is bigger than Hulk Hogan right now, and you don't know it. And apparently they were moving that much merch, but then something happened with Wendy Richter, who now is also in the Hall of Fame, but they actually had a Montreal screw job with Moolah to get the belt off of Wendy Richter. But again, Wendy Richter over because she was with Cyndi Lauper.
Oh, Wendy Richter had been around a long time.
Right? She was.
Lauper beat her.
Say that.
I'm with you. She needs to be in.
But was the Bruno take too much? Is
one word, Jeff? Just one word, man. Bruno.
Now I feel like Ted, the bear. Is that the line? Did I cross it? Was that the line? That was the line. Okay, I just needed to know. Was that the line? Yeah, Mike was there.
I applaud you for a controversial take, but you crossed the line.
Let's see what the hot takes are on Twitter if I get added on that. But I have confidence that Triple H, who is a historian, who would have guessed? You know, Wayne, when we met him, I mean, he was nice enough to us. I mean, but he also, you can tell he was all business. Would you have guessed that, you know, enhancement talent terrorizing from WCW would hold the history of WWF and E in his hands and do so well with it?
This business is so bizarre. Nothing should surprise you, but this business manages to surprise everybody.
All the time.
How could that possibly have happened? I mean, even when he was in the clique, he was at the bottom of the clique.
He was the bag carrier. He was the designated driver.
Yeah.
Oh, Mike wants a short every time I said kayfabe in this episode. We might be able to do that. We might be able to pull that off. We got the technology. We can do it. But yeah, it's an exciting time, though, to be at least in pro wrestling, because there was a concern there for a little while. It's just like, where do you go next? Like, what's going to happen? And we had the Cody return. We had the Punk return. And then it started to simmer. And now I feel like this breath of fresh air of Triple H taking over and bringing back the Wednesday Night Wars, like another wave of the Wars. It's an exciting time where I'm interested in watching the two main properties right now.
Yeah,
which is what we want. So, all right, boys.
Who knew what WWE needed the most would be to get rid of Vince, the man who made it.
You can't write something better than that. He was literally the monster that he built it, and then he was killing it. He is the epitome of, like, you either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what he became.
He reshaped the entire wrestling business. I don't know that anybody was more influential than him, and he needed to go.
He was just mad with power. That's all. Sometimes you go mad with power. It happens.
I mean, you think when he went from being a millionaire to a billionaire, that's when this happened? I was trying to feel when the heel turned happened. Like, when did it happen? I mean, this is Vince McMahon. This is Vince McMahon that took the boys out to, you know, at bars and strip clubs and decided, hey, I want to take that heart attack finisher. Can you give me that finisher in the middle of this club? Can you imagine Tony Khan doing that?
It's just with what comes after 40 years of successfully promoting and managing professional wrestling, right? I mean, he's never been unsuccessful, even at his lowest point. And I think eventually you're just like, I've done it all. I know everything. I am God.
He was,
and the business passed him up.
Yeah,
it did.
The business evolved, and he didn't. It's almost like Al Davis with the Raiders.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
He was hugely successful, but when the business evolved, he didn't.
No, he definitely stopped evolving with the business.
JJ says I can see TK at the strip club. I think that would be like super awkward. He'd be like on when he's on his pressers. He's like,
oh man, that would be good. So.
But seriously, you know, and when I say the business evolved, I'm not just talking about the booking or the production. It's the backstage politics. Vince, you know, how many superstars did he squash through the years just because he could? You know, he encouraged conflict between the wrestlers. You know, when Shawn Michaels, I mean, in Shawn's own words to me, I was really an asshole. You know, when the clique was running, everybody hated him, and Vince loved it. He loved it, the boys, you know, and he was like playing God all the time. If he didn't get the guy over, then he's going to squash the guy. Look what he did to all the talent coming up from NXT. He had that old school mentality of you have to make your guys that your company is built on has to destroy anybody coming in from the outside. That's why they botched the whole WCW invasion when they bought him out.
Oh.
He used them to make his guys to prove he won the war in front of the fans. And there's a little something to be said for that, but he took on some major stars that ended up going nowhere, but just out of spite because he won.
That was
look what he did to Ken Kennedy. Look what he did. There's just so many different names you could name off. And you can't do that. When someone catches, heat and starts building in the fans, you got to run with it. And it was almost like if the fans got behind somebody, he opposed them. And how many years did he jam Roman Reigns down everybody's throat?
Yeah. And Roman finally got over it when he took the reins.
Him over.
Yeah.
And then here comes Tony Khan with AEW, and he's going to do what the fans want. It was the perfect strategy at the time to counter everybody's hatred of Vince McMahon.
And I think that'll be almost Tony Khan's saving grace going forward, is that he's going to perpetually give the fans what they want, and that'll always kind of like save him out of bad booking, you know what I mean? I think he's going to, but that's like his biggest asset at the moment.
But how long does that work?
I don't know. 3 years so far. We'll see how much longer.
There's a saying in wrestling that you want the sorry to use the term, but you want the marks in the seats, not in the ring. And when the marks start dictating the booking, you're headed for trouble. You need to listen to the fans. You need to be aware of what the fans want, but you can't have the fans. That's how you get into hot shot booking.
Yeah.
That's how you get into, well, they've never seen this guy versus this guy, so make that match. And there's no really good reason to put them together.
Yeah.
I think the best comparison to, and ironically, it was a WWE at the time, is the last time they had before Cody, where they had such a big fever, was Bryan Danielson when he was Daniel Bryan, and he had this natural movement like what we were talking about, and you started seeing the yes chant at sporting events, and people started doing it, and it got into the zeitgeist, and they slowly cultivated that to the point where it looked a little bit like a shoot, like you were talking about, like Vince said, no, you know what, we're not going to get this over. And then they even brought Triple H into it. It's like, no, we're not going to do this. And then they brought it in front of the camera. Like, this is a terrible idea. B+ player. You're not going to do it. But at that time they knew, yeah, we are going to do this, and it's going to lead up to the biggest WrestleMania moment in a long time of him having to beat all the odds, go through Triple H, and then have Batista even tap and have Randy Orton, because the fans wanted it. But Vince, that was a little bit of old Vince and not new Vince, and maybe this was Triple H, found a way to all right, we're going to give you one, but we're really going to string it along. And it really meant something when they strung it along. And I feel like that was a great way of doing it, because in the end, at the season finale of Pro Wrestling Years, he got his moment, what everybody wanted. And man, that was a magical moment, because the fans wanted it. And like Wayne said, okay, we're going to give you what you want, but we're going to do it in the pro wrestling way, not give you that immediately. And you'll respect us more for it.
And that right there, what you just said, the pro wrestling way. How many times through the years have I complained about getting Hollywood writers for the quote creative team? I hate that I hate that term. But there is a quirkiness, there is a peculiarity that true wrestlers that's been in the ring, that understands it, that they bring to booking. Or if you have to use it, they bring to creative. And you don't get that. It's too linear, it's too straightforward, and it's presented a different way when you have Hollywood writers communicating to wrestlers in the back, telling them how they're going to structure their match. And I've heard from some of the wrestlers that's done that. Lance Cade hated it, couldn't stand it. He said, I'm sitting here listening to a guy tell me how to do my match, and this guy's never taken one bump in his entire life.
Yeah. And that's hard. And they didn't get it because
there's just there's just a way that wrestling gets there, and it's off. It's just off a little bit. There's a strange way, and you just nailed it with Bryan Danielson. Had they just went straight to it linear, the fans are behind it, let's just push him right here, right now, it wouldn't have been as big.
Yeah. 100%. And Mario, I'll put it in a term like this is the Hollywood equivalent to me is Richard Pryor in Superman 3. He got the ingredients on how to make kryptonite, but he didn't quite get all the ingredients, so I'll just use tar. And then he created red kryptonite by accident instead of green kryptonite. Richard Pryor making red kryptonite is Hollywood writers booking pro wrestling. And you see what happens. You get Superman throwing peanuts at people.
I always thought that Vince would book Hollywood writers to just like come up with ideas, and he could just pick from them at random.
That's
He's
what
like, come up with 20 ideas a piece and just shoot them at me, and I'll decide what I like.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And he's the one that he's the one that poo-pooed like, no, we're not going to have a book of long-term booking storytelling that we can keep track. We're not going to have that Bible, and now they're going to have that, and you're going to see it.
How long-term can you be when it goes on forever?
Yeah, right. This isn't a novella that has
There's no seasons. Mm-mm. There's no storylines that just kind of start and end. It's on every week. We're on schedule. No days off. No break. It doesn't stop for anything.
Yeah.
When's the last time a wrestling show did not air?
They never even stopped during the pandy.
They didn't stop during the pandemic. They didn't stop during 9/11. It doesn't matter. Like, we could go into nuclear war with Russia and Raw would still air.
Oh, my God.
Exactly. But
sure.
I'll tell you, but it goes back to what we were discussing at the beginning. Memphis Wrestling. They got years out of angles.
Yeah.
The same angle going on for more than 1 year. And I don't think that's possible, but the answer to how long can you go with a long-term angle like that, with a wrestling mind booking it, it goes as long as the fans are buying into it.
Yeah.
As long as it works. And a wrestling mind will sense when you're running out of steam, and they'll go to the blow-off match in the proper amount of time.
Yeah, and then
now,
do a shift.
You've got other issues. You got other issues now with pay-per-view schedules, and you need fresh matches at the pay-per-views. But you've got so many wrestlers under contract. Like Memphis Wrestling, they might have 20 wrestlers at any given time. 20.
I mean,
you see that many in the first 20 minutes of AEW.
I really feel that it's time for Tony Khan to just go ahead and back off a little bit, bring in somebody to help him book. Go do football for a little bit. Let someone else introduce something. I think that, here's the thing. Every genius, every great creator runs out of ideas. The greatest in the world runs out of ideas. You know what I mean? And Tony Khan probably is not like a creative genius. I don't think he is. I think he's a business genius. He's probably a tech genius. He's probably not a creative genius, but he probably had a lot of great ideas. And I think we've gotten to the point where he's ran out. So now,
I'll tell you here, right? Something that I have personally felt myself is 2 years. A booker
2 years
gets stale.
Yeah.
The booker himself with angles and stuff. 2 years. When I was booking in certain companies, when I reached the 2 year point, I felt myself like I was out of fresh ideas.
You just run out.
I had my wrestlers were getting tired of what I was doing, and I feel that 2 years is for one person running the book. That's about as far as it should go. And I've seen, I've looked through history and stuff, and similar time periods is when they would they would send a booker to another territory, almost like trading bookers. And I think that 2 years is about the time. You need fresh ideas. You need a fresh look. And I would leave one company and I'd go book for another, and it felt fresh. I had new wrestlers.
Right.
My ideas hadn't been seen in this company.
Yep.
I think I don't know how long AEW's been around, but
3 years.
2 years
right?
to me
I think
the time that you need to make a change.
Yeah, I think they're about 3 years. So I think, I feel like Tony Khan should let someone else take the reins for a little bit, drive the show. He's got an amazing stable cast of characters, all kinds of toys.
Oh, yeah.
We can do all kinds of stuff. But he may be out of ideas. Just let someone else do it for a while. You go focus on football. You still check in. You can still come to the tapings and speak before them and get a pop, get the crowd cheer. But, like, I think you just got to let someone else try their ideas. It's just like editing, right? Like, you're just editing a video, and it's just like you've gone over it 1,000 times, and it's like you think this is as good as it can possibly get. Then you show it to somebody else, and they're like, well, what about this? You never would have thought of that because your brain doesn't work that way. Your brain works a certain way, and you have these ideas and these patterns in the way you think.
That's a great way to put it. That is a great way to put it. I think that's, yeah. So it hit that 2-year mark because he wasn't the full-time booker in at least the first year, right? He didn't start taking it over until a little bit later on. Yeah. So we might be at that mark. Mike says he deserves to be the head of the table in Doctor Strangelove. Yeah.
For real. That's the thing, too.
No fighting in the war room.
Look, wrestling never stops. When Russia launches a tactical nuke on Ukraine, all of a sudden we're in a nuclear shooting war. WWE on Monday is going to be like Roman Reigns punching a nuke in the graphic.
He's the real WMD.
Yeah. I'm the real WMD of the table.
Well, man.
And he'll still have a match with The Rock at WrestleMania. Nuclear war or not, it could be dust. Only cockroaches in the audience.
And they'll still watch.
And they'll still go.
I like the, I guess that is Tony Khan because he is the one that says, hey, no fighting in the war room. No fighting in my locker room.
Yeah. I just have to call HR.
He has to call them out. So cool. All right, boys. I think that's a show. I think we're gonna wrap this up. Wayne, thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know we have a lot of stuff. Well, we're gonna do a Halloween Super Show next Tuesday.
Halloween Super Show.
Yeah, next Tuesday we're gonna pull it off. But
if anybody wants to call in with a request, let us know. We'll schedule you in. We're going to open the phone lines.
Yeah,
just call Jeff's phone.
Yeah, just hot phone lines. I'll make sure it's fully charged.
Jeff, are you going to do the show in your Jason mask?
I got it. I shared with you guys my Zoom meeting. I dressed up my punch dummy in the same wrestling gear and just had Jason hanging over me watching. And people were like, hey, I think there's somebody behind you. Like, who's standing there? Jeff, you're in imminent danger. That's right. I got to bring wrestling in all facets of my life. So that's having that in there. So cool. All right. How do we want to take this home? Do we want to do an Roman Reigns super punch, or we should have our special guest? We've been watching Chucky the whole time. Let's bring it to Tiffany. Let's end with Tiffany, and maybe she can sing She-Bop, but she will replace the word bop with balls. We want to end it on Tiff. We're bringing in Tiff, in honor of this travesty that is Cyndi Lauper not being in the Hall of Fame. And we'll sing JJ's favorite song.
Also put Jennifer Tilly in the Hall of Fame while you're at it as well.
Oh, yeah. Why not?
She's a national treasure.
Just in movie Hall of Fame, for sure. She balls, he balls, we balls, I balls, you balls, they balls, B balls, I look B balls.